It's not my thought that we came here to manifest stuff and things. Like, I don't think the sole purpose of us descending into the material realm was to get a car and a house and an SP and all this other stuff. However, as an individualized expression of God, why wouldn't you enjoy the fruits of the material while you were here? Why would you sentence yourself? And that's what's actually happening here. That's what we don't realize. We sentence ourselves. It's not the world. It's not circumstance. It's not the economy. It's not the president. It's not your parents. It's not your boss. It's not your teachers. It's not the person next door. It's not your spouse that is controlling the substance and the content and the quality of your reality. Although it seems that way, but why would an individualized expression of God descend into the material and then suffer? That doesn't really make much sense. So always with it, we're going to be talking about what is the purpose of all of this. This is a hypothesis on it. You can take it or leave it. My name is Lucian St. James, and I thank you for co-creating this moment here with me on Divine Within, where we remember the power within, the kingdom within, and that reality bends from within. Check out the Liberation Chronicle, which is the written word of this platform. The podcast Dispatches from the Edge of Obvious, which is a bit more philosophical take on these same topics. And if you would like one-on-one personalized assistance and guidance from me, all of that is below in the show notes, links provided. All we ever want, what I believe that we come here to do, is to learn freedom, is to learn liberation while amidst a realm that appears as though it is separate from all of the rest of the things, right? It appears that I'm separate from this whiteboard, but I'm not, because it's made of the same consciousness. Because if we take, and I think this was Peter Crone's definition, I heard it somewhere, but if we take divinity, so meaning that you are divinity incarnate, if we take divinity and look at that as a definition of the infinite presence of intelligence that permeates the essence and the substance of all things, and you realize that you're not actually separate from anything, that you are just observing your agreements and your points of attention. And what I mean by agreements, I mean your I am statements and that which you know to be true. But everything is technically true. Everything is true. The world is falling apart and everything is perfect at the exact same time. Those two dialectical points, they're not actually opposing each other, because everything is like, there's an infinite amount of timelines happening at any given point in time. And time then in and of itself is a point of measurement that we use to be able to conceptualize our presence here on this plane. But time in and of itself doesn't even actually exist. So then how do you attain freedom? Well, you attain freedom by refusing to agree to the assignments and the designations of the oppressor within. Because what happens, and all of us to different degrees, now obviously I've had a different timeline experience than you, but all of us, as we emerge into this realm and as we're born, we begin to become indoctrinated with all of these oppressive thoughts. Now, when I say oppressive thoughts, what I mean by oppressive is ideas and notions that lead you to believe that you are at the effect of that which is happening around you. And this really truly can't be avoided. I mean, if we were to look at this as a simulation, as a video game, as I like to think of it as like a dream or like a VR headset, the specifics of that don't necessarily matter. But I mean, there is actually, science. This is why I don't give, like, we live in this realm and we live in a westernized world for the most part. At least if you're watching this, I would imagine you're probably from the Western world. If you're not, then tell us where you're from. But here in the West, we prioritize logicality and rationality, meaning that we have an emphasis on that which can be, a type of empiricism. We have an emphasis on that which can be seen and observed and measured. But by the time that we can observe and measure something, it has already crossed all of these different dimensions and then made itself apparent in the realm of the material. But the realm of the material is not the truth. Or at least it's not the total truth. It's not false in the sense that you can go jump off a building and have no material consequences for that, because this game that we're in does have laws. But it does mean that what we're observing is a specific timeline aspect of that truth. It is not the full truth in its total capacity. So what I believe and I know that we came here to do is to learn how to be free. And freedom is oneness, is divinity, is peace, beauty, abundance, love. It's the ideal. We came here to learn how to experience the ideal aspects of this material reality, the ideal aspects of ourselves manifested through the material reality, but then we get descended into this game and immediately we are oppressed. And again, what I mean by oppressed is we're then conditioned with these notions that if you do this, then you'll get this. We're oppressed with all of these ideas of conditions. And then so then if you've come across this content and you're remembering that you are God, which welcome, gods and goddesses, start referring to yourself as a god and a goddess. I was talking to a friend of mine and I told her how I refer to any place that I dwell in for any period of time as my temple, that this is the electric temple and the electric temple is wherever I am. And she's moving into a new place and starting a new journey, new timeline with her boyfriend, and everything's going super well there. And she's like, it's so, she didn't use this word empowering, but she's like, it's so empowering to look at my house as a temple. She's like, because she was like, if I looked at it, it's just like we're moving into a place, then like, okay, that's cool. New boyfriend, things are going well. We're moving into a new place. That's cute. That's fine. But she's like, to look at it as a temple, to look at it as a place that my goddess within and goddess without. I mean, if you identify, you are an individualized, you're God. You are an individualized expression of the all that can be. She's like, but to look at it that way, she's like, it really puts a totally different lens on it. And she's being a lot more particular about the types of things that she's going to allow in her home, what the decor is going to look like, how she's going to organize her space, because she realizes that this space now is sacred. And it's not sacred because she's moving into it and it's a new timeline. It's sacred because she said so, because she's the creator of her reality. You're the creator of your reality. The holy is in every moment. The sacred is not separate from the profane. What is profane, what is truly sinful, if we must talk about it that way, is entertaining these notions of separateness. So our job here then is to stop agreeing to the terms and conditions of the oppressor. So we're oppressed. And I'm not encouraging you to take on a stance of victimhood. I'm saying that we're all thrown, unless you just had some super woke parents, which is probably less than 1% of us. We did, because I think that's, I don't like to think of this realm as an earth school, because then that kind of implies that, there's this struggling and toiling. And those were really kind of some first wave generation ideas from what could be considered the new age of spirituality. However, I do think that there's something very potent to that idea, that we did come here to learn to be free of this material reality while operating within it. So if you have, the spiritual cats from way back when, or maybe even, some Eastern ideas that say, renounce yourself of all desires, right? Buddha says that the root of suffering is desire and attachment being this, attachment then being this belief, and it's stronger than a belief, but it is a kind of, I don't know, I guess we'll just say it's an idea, but it's the appearance, I guess I'll say it this way, it's an appearance of a truth that leads you to believe that you're separate from the things that you desire. And desire, the way that I define it, is just God wanting to know more of God's self, God wanting to expand you, God wanting to expand God's experience of this, of living on this plane. When you get, I was talking about like thoughts being frequencies earlier. And if you get a thought, meaning that if a frequency reaches your antenna receiver in your electric meat suit that you're living in, then that is a timeline reality that you were able to perceive of, because there's a version of you that is already living that. And you don't have to do, yes, I can tell you firsthand the power of a regulated nervous system, but it is not necessarily that a regulated nervous system is a prerequisite in terms of something that you have to accomplish. But if you're vibrating at fear, lack, and scarcity, you're having anxiety attacks all the time, and you don't trust reality, then you're not going to see a reality that is worth trusting, because that is the timeline localization that you have tuned your attention to, meaning that's what you're going to continue to experience. So our purpose here is to liberate ourselves from the oppressive forces that this material reality presents to us. But if you're to think of it this way, if you're to think of every single thought, idea, notion, myself, even the shit I'm saying, everything that I'm saying as a suggestion, it removes this kind of authority that the material reality that outside external circumstances present to have over us. We get a bill, and the suggestion in presentation there is you're about to lose X amount of money, which then, if you're already tuned to scarcity, is going to spiral into a pre-existing narrative that you've already internalized and been conditioned with by the powers that be. Being your parents and the news and the economy and all this other stuff. And that bill then is going to become evidence to continue substantiating proof for this timeline of scarcity that you've already agreed to. So your job is to stop agreeing to it, is to start seeing everything in this reality as a kind of suggestion. Everything I'm saying to you is a suggestion. You can accept or deny it. You do not, and it doesn't mean deny your reality in terms of like, oh, that isn't happening, but you can deny the meaning because you can get the bill and know that on some way or another, you might have to attend to the material of that bill. But what does that bill mean? Does that bill mean, hey, this is handled, this is taken care of, even if I don't know how it's going to be taken care of, it is resolved, I'm living in the end, and I'm so grateful that I have the financial capacity to be able to pay this bill and for it not to be a worry of mine? Or is this more evidence of doom and gloom and dread and how nothing is ever going to get any better? The bill is, and we have to start understanding that everything that we see here really truly is neutral in and of itself. The bill is something that you were sent from some type of third-party agency or institution that says you owe X amount of money for whatever service or whatever it is that you accrued. Okay, but what does that mean? And to live as the God of your reality is to take full responsibility for the meanings that you apply to your reality, that you apply to your everyday. Start to see everything as a suggestion, and you will be free, because that's all that we came here to do, is to learn to be free. But we think that the outside world, and this is why, like, absolutely, I was talking about the East and the West, but I kind of got off topic. I get on here and I just talk about a bunch of stuff. I ask my pantheon of God frequencies to just flow through me, and we just go. And I was talking about the East and the West. But in the East, obviously there's this priority on renunciation. And in the West, there's this priority on logicality and rationality. And I think that our job here is not to veer to one extreme or the other. I'll just be honest. I'm not the kind of, and I'm not knocking it, but I'm not the kind of God that wants to sit on a mountain and eat 3 grains of rice every day and, party and call that a lifestyle. And some people do, and I have great respect for that. And then there's other individuals, more so in the West, that have prioritized the grind and the hustle. And, if you lock in for 30 days, then and you see these like these creators on here that they just look dead. They just look dead. They're like these beefed up gym bros, and they just look they look like they have no joy in their life. I mean, honestly, I look at them and I'm like, whatever they're doing, I want no parts of that. And even if they're teaching manifestation, they're teaching this kind of like just really white knuckled spirituality, even if they're talking about detachment, about like how to get stuff and things, can't be the only focus here. So we find ourselves in this type of dualistic nature, on one hand being divinity, being the all that is, being Christ consciousness, being the I am, and in another way, a simultaneous way, simultaneously then being humans in a meat suit in a material world. And as long as we are in a material world, we must act. As long as we're in a material world, we're going to be subject to the suggestion of separation. But what you summon me to tell you here in this moment, which again, I appreciate you co-creating with me, is that you're not separate from any of it. So we find ourselves, that's why I talk about divinity incarnate. That's what Yeshua was. That's what all the ascended masters, which I don't like the word masters because, you know, if you name someone a master, then you're implying that you're a slave. And so, but anyway, you know, all of the divine beings that descended here, they left some semblance of a kind of lesson. I think there's a lot of truth in the holy text, and I think there's a lot of lies in the holy text. Again, that dualistic nature. We find ourselves in a position of living both of those realities simultaneously. So you must free yourself from the oppressor that is within, because that oppressor starts as an outside kind of condition, and then eventually you start oppressing yourself. And everyone then is living with this idea of a kind of conditional worth that says that they must do a certain amount of things to get a certain amount of things, but because they feel separate from the essence of what those things would give them, because they believe it's something that they have to get, then you might even get the things, but you will still live and feel unfulfilled because it's not really about the things. Although, why the fuck should you not have the things? Why the fuck would you live as God here on earth, broke, depressed, lonely, and upset? That doesn't really make that's a very, I was going to say that's what an impoverished lifestyle for God to descend down here on earth and experience. I think you deserve absolutely everything that you can think of. Every desire that you have is a reality. There is a reality present where you are the individual that is that which you desire to be. Your heaven on earth is here today, but it is a matter of your attentions. But first you must recognize the oppressor within, and the oppressor within is any notion that you have that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, or because you're not good enough, then you are unworthy. And if you're not worthy, then you won't be loved, that you're separate from abundance, that you're separate from plenty, that you're separate from love. We think the SP has something to do with the love that we experience, but the SP is you. The SP is you. There's no amount of swiping and tapping you can do that is going to hide you, hide the essence of you from yourself, even if it appears to be. And that's why toxic relationships can be so attractive, and why I've lived in my life. I think I still live in my life with a great degree of emotional intensity. And in the past, that type of emotional intensity has led me down a path of very self-destructive behavior and self-destructive relationships. But I was only using that person as a field through which I experienced the representation of the essence of myself, meaning that other person was not destroying me, or that other person was just engaging in my idea of a relationship. I was engaging in my idea of a relationship in the context and in the field and in the appearance and in the suggestion of another person. It had nothing to do with the other person. If you feel disempowered at work, you feel disempowered inside, or you have a disempowering idea of what work is, or you have hostility towards authority figures. That's what's happening there. Like, you're only seeing yourself. And at the same time, as you shift, I don't think that manifestation takes time, because time doesn't exist, but there is what appears to be a period of time. There's what appears to be a period of time between the materialization of your manifestations. The manifestation is instant. So then if you have the question, we always have the question, it's like, well, I'm still seeing these things. Then why am I still seeing these things if I've shifted, if this is instant? And it's because when I watched my last video, what was that called? Oh, I was just talking. I was like, it's the one released right before this, but it's like Manifestation Tales, or it's just kind of talking about a couple of different things. But yeah, it's all here. It's all here now. So there are echoes, right? Especially if you've been riding in a frequency for a while, and again, for a while being an appearance of time, and then you all of a sudden shift. Well, that timeline, it might appear as though the affects of that timeline are still playing out. Your job as a God is to assign meaning to the echo of that timeline, meaning that the meaning that you apply should be representative of the new state of self that you have declared yourself to be, and to begin paying attention to that, and to begin assigning yourself to that, and to declare yourself to be the I am presence of that, because you are all of it. You're the best, you're the worst, you're everything in between. You are the truck driver, you are the person destitute living in a motel, you're in the penthouse, you're delivery driver, you're the pizza person. You are all of it. You have to choose, what version of reality am I paying attention to? Do I declare myself and assign myself to be? Because the oppressor then, after this conditioning that we're subject to as children, that we have no choice, there really is no choice in that. That is built in part of the game, and everybody's level and contents of conditioning is different. But nonetheless, we leave childhood conditioned. By the age of 7, we are conditioned with whatever the hell was happening in our home life and local environment, and ideas of politics and sex and gender, and all of these things become a part of our self-concept. And then we leave childhood believing that I'm at the effect of whatever I was taught that my conditioning told me I'm allowed to be. And all of it has something to do with a lack of self-worth, lack of love for oneself, a lack of zeal and enthusiasm for the world itself, because we're taught that we have to fight and we have to strive. And then, so then this oppressive bully then has become our sense of self, and we live our lives suffering meaning being attached to the outcome of things we believe that we can't control, meanwhile not realizing that the oppressor was out there, then the oppressor became a part of us. Now we're oppressing ourselves and living in an oppressive state. All the while actually being the ones that are creating and reinforcing these narratives of victimhood. You can have victimizing experiences, but to live in the state of victimhood is assigning a state of I am to yourself that says I am powerless, I am hopeless, I am helpless, and there's nothing that I can do to change. And that's probably how 99% of you have no idea how privileged you are to even be on the side of the interwebs where you are subjected to this type of information. Now, all of it is a suggestion. So what you do with that suggestion, well, that's up to you. You know, I can, and all of us as teachers or guiders or healers or whatever we call ourselves, I call myself a metaphysical lecturer and a divine embodiment coach, which again, if you would like my personalized one-on-one services, all of that is below. But what you do with that suggestion ultimately is up to you. And with that, signing off of tonight's transmission of Divine Within. My name is Lucien St. James, and remember to be good to yourselves and others, because everybody's just a version of you anyway.